Welcome to the Orange Hammer Podcast. My name is Corbett Storick. I've been a licensed general contractor for 8+ years, specializing in new construction, renovation, furniture building. I'm the son of an architect and an interior designer, and I've been surrounded in this industry since birth, watching all aspects from concept, design, build, punch list, and of course, all the problems that come up in between. In my time in Durham, North Carolina, I've noticed a significant gap in knowledge between homeowners who need work and the people who do the work. On this podcast, I hope to break down the process of homeownership from the perspective of both the homeowner and the contractor in an effort to help raise the knowledge of homeowners about their homes and the construction/renovation process. I hope you enjoy. If you're enjoying the Orange Hammer Podcast, or if you have a topic that you want covered, or have recently done a project, please contact the Orange Hammer Podcast. The Orange Hammer Podcast is on Instagram and Facebook. Please like and subscribe, share on whatever platform you're enjoying your podcast on. Also, check out our YouTube channel, The Orange Hammer. The Orange Hammer Podcast is proud to be brought to you by CRS Contracting, LLC, for all your construction and handyman needs, new buildings to renovations, furniture building, EV charger install, or even a TV mounted. You can call me, Corbett Storick. It'd be my pleasure to help you. You can find me on Instagram at CRS Contracting. WSDG, the Walter Storick Design Group, specialists in architectural and acoustical consulting. Check out WSDG.com. And Taylor Bragg, for all your artistic needs in all mediums. You can find her on Instagram at brag_about_art. That's brag, BRGG, with 2 G's. She's the fantastic artist behind the Orange Hammer logo, and she did my fantastic table painting of my podcasting table. All right, welcome everybody. Today we have a special episode of the Orange Hammer Podcast. It is the first Zoom episode. It is the first video episode, and I'm really happy to welcome a very long-time lost friend from high school, believe it or not, my friend Matt Burstein. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing good. Really happy to be on the program here. Long-time listener, first time calling in.
I don't even know if we could qualify anybody as a longtime listener, but I love that you've been there since the beginning, and we've been trying to do this since before I even knew that I could do this on Zoom, and I had friends help me figure it out, and this is pretty cool. I understand you're getting rocked with some weather up there.
Yeah, today's forecast is 6 to 10 inches. Tomorrow's another 2 to 4, and then Sunday another 1 to 3.
Okay, so it's coming down for you. You're up in Vermont, right?
Like northern Vermont. Like
Northern Vermont.
Like when I get on my four-wheeler, I have to make sure that I don't cross the border.
Oh, okay.
That's the border with Canada, not the border with New York.
I assumed that's what you meant, but I didn't realize that you were that close. Is there no fence or border patrol? Is there just some signs?
Like when you're in the woods, there's nothing. It used to be that you could actually cross the border. There's a library near me that actually splits the border, and only recently did they actually wall that off and make it impossible. But border patrol can actively monitor within 100 miles of the border. So I've had job sites up there so close to the border that I was on Canadian cell service, and there were 7 border patrol trucks, and they all knew me. And yeah.
I mean, I guess when you're up there doing a job for a couple of months, they see the same guy in the same truck with tools redoing a house. It's probably better to become friendly with them than to just stay a stranger.
It was less the guy with tools showing up. It was more when I'm just in my big black lifted pickup truck with nothing, cruising the back roads near the border. That's when they're what's he up to?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Okay, so let's jump right in. I know, obviously, you and I know our high school life, but nobody else does. When it comes to relating to this podcast, you and I were pretty aggressive in the theater set like design and building as carpenters basically in high school at Oakwood Friends School in Poughkeepsie, where we met.
We were like
Um,
the only two people with any skill set. I remember
yeah,
getting called like off the soccer field during practice to have the music director be like, "Hey Matt, they need someone to cut something with a jigsaw. You got 10 minutes?"
yeah,
Like, yeah.
yeah. I don't know if that ever happened to me, but it was definitely like once. I believe it was Elaine. Maybe I might have the name
Mm.
wrong. Who did
Oh
the
yeah,
theater department,
it
and
was
then
Elaine.
Aaron, who
Yeah,
did the music department.
yep.
Once they saw that, like we could even just handle like a hammer correctly and a
Hmm.
chisel correctly, just like some basic stuff. Which I'm not trying to even I'm not even necessarily trying to like throw shade on our other classmates. Like it is not required at 14
Oh,
to know how to like
no one
use all
knows.
these tools. You and I come from whatever the background is. Like for me personally, I got an architect father, I got an interior designer mother. My
You
mom
down
was like doing
you
a lot
down
of artwork before she met my father, and like they met, and she even owned more power tools than he did. And I
well
grew up with a shop like my whole life, so
you
it's just like different upbringing. What about you?
so two things. First note, you downplay who your father is,
What?
like in a very, very humble way. But like since day one, I've been jealous of like who your dad is. For anyone who doesn't know, Corbett probably doesn't talk about this. His dad designed Electric Ladyland Studios, like worked with like some and still does work with like some of the biggest Grammy award winning artists on the planet. Like your father is very impressive, and it's very, very humbling that you've done what you've done and built your own name. And it's very nice to see that you haven't let that go to your head. And I mean that in the most respectful way.
I
Like,
I really that hits me deep heartstrings. I really appreciate those words, man. I mean, I got nothing but love for my pops when I was younger. That was too much resentment that I wish I could go back and like talk to my younger self and be like, "What are you doing?" But that's what you have to figure out when your fathers and sons have
right,
their own relationship. And
right.
now
Um,
it's awesome. He's my pop, and like he
yeah,
helps me and has helped me with this podcast even. And I think in a couple
fantastic.
weeks might be a guest, so he'll
That's
detail
great.
his whole story about Electric Lady on the air.
So the second thing is, so my background, I got into doing this stuff in probably a much more, I'm going to say like low key way than you did. So my dad is an accountant by trade and wanted to build furniture for fun, as like most like New York accountants feel like they need to like do something more interesting with their lives. So he got into furniture building when I was a kid, and it was watching him from like 4 and 5 years old where I picked up, a scrap piece of 2x4 and a scrap piece of 4x4 and made a table. And it was a terrible table. It was horrible. The nails were all bent over. I painted it some like ridiculous shade of purple we had laying around. It was god awful, but
Dude, the
it's
first thing I
started.
ever built, I hammered in screws because those are the only things I had. So I can't judge for the first thing. How you get into
No,
it, this is how you get into it, man.
yeah.
So does he have like a garage workshop? Is he doing this in the
So,
basement?
so,
Is he
so when I
renting a
was,
space?
yeah, so when I was a kid, he started off in our basement, and eventually we moved, and he ended up with a full shop, and he was very, very dedicated to that specific part of the trade, furniture building, and ended up with some pieces in Fine Woodworking magazine. Did some really incredible stuff, and then completely gave it up. Put the
And
tools
when we
down.
talk about furniture, are we talking like,
He built a sleigh bed that ended up in a magazine that was a recreation of a bed built for George Patton's daughter. So
oh,
it
okay.
took him, he had to go back to school. He went to night school for like 5 years because he realized he didn't have the skill set to build it.
So this is
Um,
like master level carpentry and
I mean,
joinery.
built that bed. He built a beautiful bed for me and a beautiful bed for my brother, both of which were really masterpieces. And then he got into inlay work and built a set of cribs for my sister's two children. and promptly quit.
Hmm.
He got bored and literally gave me everything. I had a whole workshop, and I was in high school. This happened in high school. So my senior year, I left for college, and I left the shop sitting and went to college, got a degree, ended up working for the government building wooden ships. And at some point, I met at the time, the right woman, and I traded all of the shop equipment, a 3-horse Delta, like Platinum Edition table saw, band saws, planers, all kinds of stuff. I traded them for diamonds so that I could make an engagement ring for this woman.
All right, and
So
that's going to do it for our podcast. It's been
yeah.
nice knowing you, Matt. I've got to go track you down, and that's the worst story I've ever heard. No, I'm just kidding.
So
That's
yeah,
very, as the carpenter, I'm like, what,
I
what?
didn't know what to do with it. Like I had all this equipment as we're young, we're like living in apartments post college. I was like, when I say broke, like I was homeless, working for the government, and I was still homeless. Like I had nothing. So what was I going to do? Like I couldn't keep the equipment. I had nothing to do with it. But a buddy of mine had a furniture and custom millwork shop near where I was living in Connecticut after college. And he was like, "Yeah, let's take my truck and trailer. Like my girlfriend has these diamonds that she'll trade. Like you help me load the trailer, the diamonds are yours." I'm like, all right, sure. So I ended up with like 3 carats worth of diamonds.
Wow. And did you make
Oh no,
said
I made,
ring?
yeah. Oh yeah, I like bought platinum. I like made the band. I only sent it out to have the settings done professionally because I just didn't have the skills or the tool set to like really do a setting for a nice stone. And I made a ring and proposed to her.
Wow, wow. I don't know anybody who's made a ring before.
It
That's
was this.
crazy.
It was the same girl I was dating in high school,
Uh,
Danielle. That happened.
I am gonna be honest. I can't
You
really
you you
remember
never met
that.
her. You probably never met her because she didn't go to our school. But like the same, like I didn't date anybody that like I talked about in high school because I was dating this girl from my hometown.
Gotcha, 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 gotcha.
So
Wow.
that's a whole other
That I was
story.
gonna say that's a
That's
whole
that's a
that's
whole
a
other
whole
thing.
other story.
Yeah, we split about a year ago, but
Yeah.
that's a whole other thing. But yeah, I made the ring. There's a whole bunch of stories around that. Um, I'm the guy like I have the reputation. I'm the dude who had a branch of the U.S. Post Office opened up at like 9:30 at night to get the setting to get the ring back from the shop because they didn't deliver it on time. And I was like, I'm going to like visit this girl in Vermont, like right now, like go open this office for me.
Right, right. I need that. You don't
Like I
understand.
need it like right now, like I'm in my truck, like I'm heading north, like go get it.
Uh, I could just imagine like the scene from Meet the Parents where like
Mhm.
the bag doesn't fit and he's like, dude, I've got a diamond ring in there. And he's like, I don't give a shit. The bag don't fit. We're checking it. And he
Yep.
just like throws the bag to the other guy. I could just
Yeah.
imagine you like, no, you don't get it, dude. Like it's not
Yeah.
about to not
Of
about to happen.
of all the reputations I have, that's definitely one of them. Like you need someone to like make like an impossible deal happen. I'm the guy.
Yeah, the guy, the impossible deal maker.
Even
Okay, well, I'm gonna keep that in mind if I have an impossible deal I come across. So
even when I
yeah.
started for as a basic hammer swinger for construction companies here in Vermont, I would have my boss come to me and be like, Matt, we've got $1,800 to spend on this piece of equipment, and they're asking 2,700. Can you take the afternoon and leave the site? Can you like go work the deal?
Yeah.
And I'm like
I'll go figure it
23,
out. Yeah.
23 years old, and he was like, yeah, I know. If anyone can do it, Matt will get it done.
So you mentioned building wooden ships. Did I hear
Yep.
that right?
Yep.
Okay. So
So
what kind of ships?
So I studied environmental science in college for my first degree. I went to college twice, 2 degrees.
Okay.
So the first one was environmental science, and through a bunch of connections, I ended up sort of into like the sailing world and research vessels and like that kind of stuff. And after college, a place that I had done some volunteer work for basically floated me an offer and was like, "Hey, we're at the National Maritime Museum which is called Mystic Seaport in Connecticut. We run the preservation shipyard. We'd like you to come and run a crew and help us restore the oldest commercial wooden vessel in the country.
Okay, so you were doing restoration.
Yep.
Okay, so
It's
were you doing like the actual work, or you just said you were running the crew? So you were more like
I did it.
the foreman.
Yeah, I did everything though. So I at one point was running the milling sort of department, so to speak. We would get trees custom cut. We'd go down to like Georgia, find a farm or a plot of lands and make a deal with the homeowner. Hey, we want to cut 12 trees. We'll give you $300,000 to let us cut 6 trees or 10 trees or whatever, haul them up to Connecticut, and we would use we had a full size, when I say like full size mill, like the double saw blade,
Oh
like
yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking
6 foot,
about.
each one 6 foot tall.
There, believe
Um,
it or not, are like three within 30 minutes of here, which is
yep.
insane. But so you're literally you're hunting and sourcing right to the tree. You're
Oh
not
yeah.
you're going as far you're
This
not even going to like a mom and pop
They
wood
don't
mill.
have
You're
it.
like, we're just gonna go to
They don't
find
have
the tree.
it doesn't exist.
Right,
We needed old growth lumber. A
right.
lot of it was southern yellow pine. We also took pieces that were originally buried in Boston Harbor that were slated for the two sister ships that were going to be sisters to the Constitution.
When you
Um,
say it's southern yellow pine, is that because you were following what it was and it
yep,
has to be that specific, or you
yep.
just know that that's the correct wood, or both?
That was but both. I mean, that's how it
Both.
was built originally. That's what we needed. And because of I mean, as a builder, and some of the listeners might know, the tight grain pattern really matters when
Yeah.
you want to bend.
Especially when you're talking like old growth versus new growth. Like when you look at those rings on a
Oh, yeah.
100-year-old 2x4 versus junk you buy off the shelf at Home Depot. And I'm not even trying to throw shade at Home
Oh no,
Depot.
I
Big
mean,
fan.
it's
But like you look at the edges of those two pieces of wood and it's like,
mhm.
how does this even hold
And
up? Yeah.
uh, the Home Depot lumber might have 6 rings, and the stuff we were using might have 106 rings.
Yeah. That's not even
And
exaggeration, FYI listeners. Like that's a legitimate claim because like the older growth, the tighter those rings pack, like for any
it's
tree loving and or environmental loving people, like when you chop a tree in half, you can actually count those tiny little rings and you can count how many years old the tree is. So like when
so
you
you get
look
a
at the end grain of a piece of wood, when those rings are really really tightly packed, that is a much older tree than if
and
they're not as tightly packed.
it's natural growth. What you see in this wide grain spacing that you get from a lot of store-bought lumber is farmed lumber,
Yeah, they're
and
farming it for lumber.
it's not poor quality. It's just
No.
it's not the quality that you need. Because when I say we need specialized material, we were taking trees, cutting them down. We'd end up with a piece that we were going to use for a plank on this ship that would be 50 feet long, 3 inches thick, and 14 inches across. And then we would have to steam bend it. And you're
Yeah, I mean
bending it
that's
in two directions. It has to bend lengthwise around the hull of the ship. But when you get to the far ends, it actually also doesn't just bend in one direction, it twists. So you're bending it in two planes.
wow. Does it have? It has to flare with the direction of the
No,
bow.
you're talking wrong direction. It first it bends around the ship in one direction, but then at the far ends, it does this. They
Wow.
twist.
Okay, so you're
It's
almost three
yes.
directions.
And I
Whoa.
learned about it's a thing called spiling. Is the how do you, you'll the builders here will appreciate the thought behind this. So you can't just square cut. You can't just cut one of those things square and expect it to fit. It's called spiling, is the way in which you measure and cut that piece so that it will fit the final location. So what you think is square really is beveled in two
Right.
directions.
Yeah, I
So
mean there's not a lot of square on a curved ship,
so I was
if any.
so I was making planks at one point. I was doing the milling, where I would run. We had a giant Yates American planer that was like 46 inches across. So every day for a while, I came in and I had to oil all of the bearings on that thing. There are pictures of me where you can only see my feet sticking out of it because I had to change blades out. And then eventually, I got assigned the last major part of the project that I was assigned to was hand making and replacing all of the copper rivets that hold that ship together. So you have a 3 inch
Okay.
plank on the outside. You have a frame member, like the ribs of the ship, that could be 2 feet thick, and then you've got another 3 or 4 inch plank on the inside. So I'd have to make a 3 foot long rivet out of copper and then peen over both ends and make sure it was cinched down tight. And I did that about 104 times.
Wow, I had no idea the boats were held together that way. I assumed it was like tongue and groove and nails or
So
something
they
like
use nails
that.
for some of it,
Oh,
but they're spikes, like railroad spikes when you say
okay.
nails. But when you talk about nails on a wooden ship that age, they're actually called,
What
the word,
age?
the ship is now 170 something, 180 years old.
Wow, so we're
This is literally the
rapidly approaching a
oldest.
200-year-old ship.
This is literally the oldest commercial vessel left in the United States. Like Moby Dick is in part based on this vessel. It's like the most successful whaling ship in American history.
Wow. What's the
Uh,
name of the
it's
ship for
the
anybody
Char-
who wants to look it up?
the Charles W. Morgan.
Okay. Very cool.
Um, and they use nails. They're called trunnels, which is short for tree nail. You take black locust, run it through. We actually bought a broom handle shaper, so you could make round pegs, and you run a locust into this machine, make round nails, and you pound those in. It's all wood.
Okay. Gotcha.
Black locust is super rot resistant, bug resistant, and will last longer than most metal will. So we even reused some of them. We could pull them out and reuse them.
Wow. That's pretty impressive and still continuing to blow my mind. I know so little about um ships and even less about ship construction. I have a buddy who used to work on the coast of North Carolina, restoring like modern ships,
Yeah,
and wooden sailboats, like full, like one-off luxury type of stuff.
you would love this. You would love
And
that world.
I mean, all his like stories and pictures were very cool,
Mm.
but he would try to explain like certain techniques, and I was like, I feel like you would be looking at me just as dumbfounded if I started like going over like deck ledger bolt size details or whatever. Maybe not you, but in
Mm.
Connor's case. But like,
Like
yeah.
I knew nothing about it. I started building boats when I was 13. I built the first boat I ever built. Yeah, I started at 13 in the Hudson Valley, and I built it without numbers, without a tape measure. The
And
guy I learned
what kind of boat was that?
a 21-foot long flat bottom shad boat.
Wow.
And the guy that I built it with was a guy named Cortland. And he told me if you design it right, you build frames. And you're just fitting wood to a framework. You have stations, station 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if your wood fits, it fits. Does it matter if it's 16 feet or 17 feet? No, doesn't make a difference at all. And we did it almost all by hand. And that I got into boat building. I've been in like water stuff like you, the Hudson Valley, like we're all about water. I was kayaking all through high school, and when I needed like a real job to make real money, I went into construction. It was like sweeping floors. And again, kind of like you grew up with it. I wanted that skill set, so it was always kind of a thing for me to be like, I've never built wooden boats. I went to college though. I could figure this out. Sure, they want to pay me. Well, yeah, sure. I'll tell them I can do that. I'd never done anything like that in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So you perfectly mentioned, which is a perfect segue, that when you needed real money, you started um, sweeping floors on a construction site. So I'm assuming, and just correct me if I'm wrong, that you moved from building boats into the more home residential style
I
construction
went
that
like
like I saw you doing on
full.
like
It was
social
like
media.
it was like full circle. So it was, I don't know, I guess it was my first, summer after ninth grade. I realized that like, cool, the kayak world is awesome, but like it just pays for more kayaking. Um, so when I went into construction sites, I started working in Connecticut. Somehow Connecticut, it's always Connecticut. In Greenwich, so big money. I worked for a multi-million dollar construction company that worked on like Oprah's house and like crazy stuff. And yeah, I swept the floors. I could tell stories about those days forever. It was a company owned by three Irish brothers, Billy, Bobby, and Tommy. And those three guys walked into a bar, and then you can finish it with any joke that you want. Like dead serious, like they were those guys. So like Tommy ran the company and was never on the job site. I met him once. Bobby ran the day to day, but was more interested in driving his M3 and then going to play with like his helicopter or whatever. So he'd show up in like an M3. I would like push his buttons and get him going, and he'd blast a donut in this like gated community or whatever, go like curb to curb without ever like just spin around right there. Say, hey guys, glad you're doing well. Florencio, go do this. Manuel, go do that, and then disappear. And Bobby ran the like excavating heavy part of the business, and I worked mostly with him. So I was operating equipment, sweeping floors, running grade stakes, and I eventually, with those guys, is where I got into the real like swinging a hammer. They finally were like, "All right, we need you to go frame out this closet. Go help, Giovanni. Go help him hang the homosote on the ceiling." And yeah, I learned the basic skills from those guys. Went into boat building because it was cool. That was like a super flex when I was younger. Literally was homeless. Like the government promised me a house. And when I showed up, they were like, yeah, the museum that you're working at is so broke. We actually sold the house that we were going to put you in. So like, hang on a minute.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah,
Okay.
literally. Yeah. And then that project was coming to an end, and I didn't really know what to do. So I ended up moving in with this woman in Vermont, and we were engaged, and I needed a job. And I started sanding and painting like $1 million yachts, and very quickly realized like this is not what I'm trying to do. Like 10-hour days in a Tyvek suit with like forced air, like very, very hot, very
That sounds,
miserable.
yeah, it's miserable. That's the kind of stuff that Connor was doing. He'd show me these pictures of
Yeah.
him with like double suit, triple glove,
Hmm.
respirator, taping the glove to the suit
Yep.
around the wrists and the ankles. And I'm just
Hmm.
like, I know you're proud and you should be proud of working hard, but I don't, this
No.
is not, I'm not like, ooh, I'm jealous of
Yeah.
you. I'm like, that's a cool boat though. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's like,
Oh, and it was
yeah,
terrible. So
yeah.
it's actually the one of the only two or three jobs in my whole life I ever quit. Where I was just like, I have no good reason to quit. I'm just quitting. This is terrible.
And
And
then,
I
so when you quit sanding boats, what do you do after that?
I had like, I don't know, maybe like I was making nothing. So, but I was living with this girl and her roommate in their like college, like apartment off campus, and was like, all right, so I get like a week because I don't have to pay rent. Like they'll cover me, like whatever, I'm good. And now I got to find a job. And I ended up working for a home building company. Or no, I ended up working for a standing seam roofing company,
Okay. Gotcha.
and um, worked that job for maybe 6 or 9 months.
For those
And
who don't
then
know, that's like metal sheet roofing.
sheet roofing.
Yeah.
So I learned the skill set. I learned how to do that really well. And that's a whole other story. They fired me.
Okay.
Um, in Vermont, we have Lake Champlain, for those of you who don't know. And in the middle of Lake Champlain is a little string of islands called the Islands. And this company was based up there, and it's very, very insular. Like if you're not in Vermont in general, you can live here 90 years and you'll still be what's called a flatlander. Like you're never from Vermont if you're not born in Vermont.
Okay.
So
Sounds
in
like a
the
very inclusive people.
Vermont largely is, but they're like pretty serious about that. And the islands is even worse. So I got fired for to be replaced by a guy that I will call Fat Travis forever. Fat Travis weighed like 400 pounds with his boots off. Like he couldn't legally climb a ladder.
Oh, I totally got fired from a job in California because I was the New Yorker. Like
Yeah,
they made up
I
a
still,
reason, but like
I
I
still
know
had,
exactly what
I
I
still
would have
had,
had more respect for them had they just been like, You don't really fit in with the culture. And I would have been like,
Exactly.
you know what? You're right. I don't. Thank you for the time.
Yeah. I still had New York plates on my truck at that point.
Yeah.
Like I left. I show up to get my tools, the last of the stuff I left in their trailer. And literally there's this dude so big he cannot legally climb a ladder. I'm like, you're a roofing company. You're a roof.
So was he
I'm
just like hired to be the cleanup? You know what? I don't even care
I
about
don't
that
even
guy.
know. It's not the point.
Yeah.
It was
After the roofing company,
so after the
though.
roofing guy, so I ended up working for a home building and remodeling company. And I worked for those guys for like 3 years.
Okay. And
And
what kind of stuff were
no, two
you doing
years.
for them? And what kind of
I was just
remodels were they doing?
they did everything from new builds to like $1 million remodels.
Residential.
All yep, mostly residential.
Okay.
And I worked for them. I was more like I guess I lied. It was like a year and a half or 2 years. And
You liar.
I wasn't really moving up. I had a skill set and I was educated, and they just weren't really a company that was interested in promoting that. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but they were looking at just expanding within what they were doing.
You were
And
just like an hourly laborer, just
yeah,
with like just doing work,
yeah,
like
and I was making
frame
good
this,
money.
side that, whatever.
I had all my own tools. I'd go and they'd say, here are plans, go frame this thing, go frame this addition, um, go do this. And I
Gotcha.
did everything, sheetrock, whatever.
So
But I
you
was
wanted to move
gonna,
up. They wanted to keep you where you were, make maybe move you lateral at most.
they were gonna pay me more, but was more interested in like, so like, where's my career longevity? Like all of us guys that are younger in construction kind of look at the older guys and they're like, yeah, you're 80 and brag about working 14-hour days, 6 days a week, but like, where'd your life go?
Right.
Like, I'm not trying to be that guy. And I had this strange sort of confluence, this strange meeting. So we're doing a remodel at a commercial building, and the concrete floor there was about 14 inches thick, and we had to put in new walls. So builders out there, Corbett, like, how do you do that when they have radiant heating in the floor? How hard is that? How many times do you ever do that in your
I
career where
have I have not come across that, but I can definitely thinking how I would do it, and I'm
so the
thinking of people I
solution,
would call right now, not really sure of a solution off the top of my head. Sounds like a nightmare.
infrared camera.
Ah, infrared kit.
So in Vermont, we're into this energy efficiency thing, and my boss couldn't figure out how do we drill all these holes to anchor these new walls. And I was like, hey, why don't we call one of these energy efficiency people? They use a blower door test and a camera, infrared camera, to analyze heat loss in a building. Why don't we turn the heated floor on and see if that $20,000 infrared camera can pick up the lines? And it worked. And I
Nice.
met the guy with the camera. And when I was ready to kind of leave that company, I called the camera guy and I'm like, hey, are you hiring? He says, yeah. Come down to this job site in the next town over. Come see what we're working on. If it interests you, we'll start you next week. And I worked for him for like 2.5 years till I bought out his business.
Oh wow, you bought out his air testing business.
The construction company, I bought all of it.
Oh, you bought
So
the. Oh,
the whole
sorry.
thing. So yeah,
Okay.
so
Okay.
I ended up getting certified. I went to college a second time in the meantime and got a construction management degree. And then I got certified by a group called BPI, which is the Building Performance Institute. So I am now internationally certified to do energy analysis on buildings, infrared cameras, this blower door testing thing, where we depressurize a whole building and then quantify how much air is moving through it. And
Yeah.
that starts to tell us things like, where the leaks are, how do you plug that stuff up? So I worked for him for a while and then was kind of ready to go out on my own. And he was ready to give it all up. And I was like, hey, let's make a deal. Here I am making deals again. So I made a deal with the
Wheeling
guy.
and dealing.
I bought all of his equipment. I bought his client list. I changed the business name, rebranded, and reopened as a business now known as Practical Construction.
Right. Right. Which that is the practical construction is the name that I started to see on
Yep.
like I guess like Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And then
Yeah.
obviously like you and I realizing that we were basically mirrored
We used to
versions
do
of each
the
other
same.
in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
doing, basically the same thing. And, I'd look up one day and you'd be framing a wall, and then
Yep.
I'm doing that. But I did always notice that you seem to be doing a lot more. I can't think of a better word than like specialty stuff.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
I
My
would see
whole
you working on like a log cabin that would be like, I'd be
so
like, I
that
would have no idea where to start cutting out a rotted log and replacing, and stuff
well,
like
so that's a
that.
good segue into so that project ended up in the Journal of Light Construction. So I've been in that magazine a couple of times. I don't know if you're familiar with that
I'm not,
publication.
no.
JLC is like the residential construction magazine publication that's out there in the United States right now. And my whole business was based on doing projects that were high performance for efficiency that no one else would touch. So the
Gotcha.
log cabin wasn't just replacing logs. I did an energy analysis on it. I ended up saving that guy like 87% on his heating and cooling bills when I was done. And I built supporting walls to support the first floor, second floor, and the roof. And I took an Makita electric chainsaw, and I cut all the walls out of the house at once. I could look right through past the back of the fridge into the living room, out the front door, where the front door would have been, into Canada.
You just had a roof sitting on some stilts for a
Yeah,
day.
yeah. No, for like 4 months.
For like
And
4 months. Oh man.
I rebuilt. I did the electrical. I did the plumbing myself, and I rebuilt the walls as super insulated, like 10 inches thick.
Whoa. So does that project at the end of it get like an Energy Star
This is like
rating?
Energy Star is all like nonsense. This is like
Oh,
all that
that's
same.
all
Even
nonsense.
it's
Okay.
not. It's I say nonsense, but like we they like to. It's an easy way to sell products and to get people to like think about efficiency. But what I used to tell my clients was that your house is an energy bucket. Things like Energy Star products and solar panels fill that bucket more efficiently. But you're really not doing any good if you don't plug the holes in that bucket first. And that's largely what my business was doing, was trying to plug these holes.
Gotcha.
Where how do you tell a homeowner in good conscience it's worth it to spend $14,000 on new windows when air doesn't move sideways? It's called the stack effect. Air moves up and down. Hot, buoyant air moves up, creates a little bit of negative pressure in the lowest parts of the house, pulls cooler air in at those points, and wants to raise right out the roof. So you probably don't see it as much where you live, but when I drive around Vermont in winter, I can see a spot where a house has snow on some parts of the roof, but not on others.
Oh yeah, we definitely could see that, and I can
That's heat.
see
That's heat
like
loss.
yeah, and I can see it compared to like my neighbor's house is much
Yep.
older, so
Yep.
I always have snow and they don't.
And
But then even my other side neighbor is even better because her house is newer. So you can
right.
literally see like a progression of energy
Yep.
loss based on how old the house, because it's super old
Exactly.
brick house. Like
Yep.
even if it was built really well at the time, that blown in insulation is compacted and they should re-blow in more and yada, yada, yada. And there's
Don't
probably
don't
four other
don't
things
don't
that could be
don't do that.
done. Don't do that. Okay.
I'll give you all the secrets. I'll give you the tips on how to deal with that.
Okay.
But
Okay. Well,
but
sounds like we're planning a second episode on just energy efficiency.
oh, there's a whole lot there stuff that I would love for homeowners to know about. Because
Yeah.
again,
Well,
you get a
I've
lot of salespeople want to sell someone on curb appeal. Oh, your new windows will look nice. Oh, your new siding will look nice. Well, yeah, those are helpful, but you know what'll really sell your house well is telling the next homeowner that they're not going to be spending 600 a month on heating. That
Yeah,
really
I
helps.
mean, I mean, everything you said is accurate. The problem is that when people are upgrading for themselves,
Mhm.
the visual trumps most things. Like maybe not for you and me
Right,
personally,
right.
but for them, we're talking mass majority of humans, right? So mass majority of humans, they want it. The look of it is a priority, and that's not even like I'm not, again, not like insulting the mass
Oh no,
majority of people. Like they want the
that's
siding to look
they
really
don't
cool.
care.
I kind of care what the siding looks like, but I am like you, way more interested in the energy efficiency rating
So
of the siding and how well I'm sealing the house.
I'd be
But
willing to bet that there's an organization in North Carolina, the way that there is in Vermont, that works to promote energy efficiency and to incentivize it. If little tiny Vermont can do that, then North Carolina can.
there definitely is, and probably more than one. I know that
Well, there'd be one like we call it it's called Efficiency Vermont in Vermont. And what they do is they add like on an average electric bill, it might be like $1.76 a month in what we call an efficiency charge. So right now they take that money, and if you do a project, you can get up to like $5,000 back just for having done, say, you're going to re-insulate your attic. Here, you want to re-insulate? Here's 5 grand. So I figure every state is kind of getting on this energy efficiency bandwagon, and most have come up with what they call an energy utility. And there's sort of like a state partnership organization that will guide how all of this money is spent. They get federal funding, they raise their own funds, and they help set state precedent. How do we improve building code? Vermont, and I again figure if little tiny Vermont can do this, then I think what the Durham area's general, like all the whole like suburbs included, it's like 1.2 million people or something. Like
yeah, I mean, I don't know what the organization is called, but I know that there are
the specialties.
environmental for the building zone specifically. In fact, my last guest a
Mm,
couple of days ago is a professor at a community college, and he
cool.
teaches like basically environmental construction. And
Mm,
as part of his course, him and his students build a very tiny, super energy efficient home, and
mm,
then they auction it off before it has like cabinets and trim. So you can
that's
buy this
neat.
house that's like
Very neat.
sheetrocked and past all its rough-ins,
Mm.
and then you just gotta buy like toilets and fixtures and stuff,
I
which is very
forget.
very cool. But also there's um, since you've been listening to the podcast, Jeremy Stallings.
Mm.
I've had him on twice. I've built his home with him.
Yeah, he was great.
He took like a state sponsored like environmental house tour where
Mhm.
you literally go to people's personal homes that have been built that qualified for whatever um certification to be deemed like super energy efficient, and you can
Right.
go and tour them. And he was telling me stories about this one house that when you close the doors and windows, he said it was like sealing a bank vault.
And that's exactly what we're looking for. This whole idea that you can build a building too tight is completely untrue. The idea is control it.
Yeah,
You want to know where the air is coming from, where it's going, how it's moving, and give the homeowner control over that. So the idea that, oh, we don't want to build them too tight, they need to breathe. Well, they need to breathe. Buildings are living things. Take in air, take in moisture, take in energy. That's all true. But we want to be doing this in a way that lets the homeowner control exactly what's happening. And in Vermont, what we've started doing is, yeah, ultra tight buildings using things like bath and exhaust fans as ways to make up for clean air. Um, that's a way. Mechanical ventilation is great. We're moving away from what you guys know of as like atmospherically vented appliances. So your propane water heater pulls in makeup air just from the basement that it's in. Well, that's not a good thing. We want that to have a direct vent outside. Pull in cold air from outside.
right.
Don't pull anything from inside. But it's a concept. It's a concept. So this isn't like LEED certified. LEED certified is mostly about low carbon. Are your building materials good for the environment?
Right,
But
which
we
is
don't.
a conversation that maybe we don't have time for, but is a
Right.
conversation
Oh,
worth
it's
having.
it's a very, very valid conversation.
Yeah.
Concrete's the number one building material on Earth. You know how much energy goes into carbon is non-sequestered because of the use of concrete.
Yeah, it's
I
not
mean,
good.
it's terrible. But at the same time, we have to balance that with, well, what's actually going to help us, say, be less reliant on fossil fuels like tomorrow? Because yeah, concrete's not great, but you know what? You make concrete once and you pour it and do it right, that's forever.
Yeah.
You build a
Yeah.
building poorly and things get wet or they have poor airflow and poor moisture control. Well, now you've created a condition where your wood framing structures won't last forever, but they should. There's no reason they can't. We have
Yeah. I mean, I think
My house is 260 years old.
260 years old. Wow. So
Yeah, I
your
live in an old
foundation, your beams
farmhouse.
are probably like legit
They're wood. They're
first
like
generation wood trunks.
they still have bark on them.
Yeah, I was gonna say they probably are. Yeah, I can imagine. I can
Yeah,
visualize this. Yeah,
yeah. So
on
yeah,
piers that are not cinder blocks, they're just rocks,
what are piers?
rocks. Yeah, just boulders. Just
It's
giant
legit.
boulders.
It's actually just like I wish I could take the computer in the basement. We'd have no internet down there. But
Yeah.
it's actually like tree trunks sitting on a dirt floor.
Oh wow. And it hasn't. Yeah, it's well. There it goes back to the difference between old growth and new growth. Like new
And
growth
that's
would
part of
not
it.
be able to do
And
not be
that's
able to do
part
that.
of it. It sounds duplicitous, but the fact that this house leaks like a sieve uh, like also means that it breathes really well so that those wooden framing members don't stay wet, they dry. And even though there's plenty of moisture down there because of the dirt floor, it's that drying action that's kept them healthy for hundreds of years.
Yeah, I mean you have a perfect storm of unique characteristics going on there
It is.
that
It's actually
that
really.
almost couldn't even be
It's so.
caught or duplicated in another house in another climate, let alone, like
Oh
if I
yeah.
try to do that here, even
Oh no.
with old growth, like there's just too much humidity.
Well, especially if
Yeah.
you're still. I see now. I'm now looking in the backgrounds. I see those cans of spray foam behind you. Yeah, especially if you're using those,
Yeah.
things won't last.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got to seal my
You've got
windows somehow.
don't use that.
Yeah.
You've got the good caulking though. That's DAP brand.
I'm glad you approve of my choice
Is
of
that
cock.
Dyna?
They're
Is
all
that
empty and just for show. No, I'm
is
just
that
kidding.
is that Dynaflex 230
Uh,
or is that the Fast Dry Alex Plus?
I think it's the fast dry.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
That's
got
Alex
liquid nails
Plus.
down there. I got a couple of cans of spray foam.
Get yourself a good metal reusable spray foam gun. You'll get better
So I don't
products.
do I don't do the spray foaming. I have a
Oh,
we
you pay. I
we
don't do
spray
that. I
foam
pay
like
somebody to do that.
we spray foam like the entire building
Oh
at
God.
once, like the whole
Oh
envelope.
God,
And
no.
so like those cans are
Oh,
like
we're
it
definitely doing.
are those cans are like inspector fails like one thing around a plumbing pipe, and I just like it'd be easier for me to go spray it
Just
real
go do
quick
it.
than it is to like call the plumber to get him out there in a
Yeah.
week to have him complain. And I'm like, you know what, I've got foam, like, let me just go take care of it.
We
That's what
totally
those are for.
we're totally gonna have to do an entire podcast just on why you shouldn't spray foam a whole building.
Well, I will be happy to do that podcast because I love the spray foam and what it does for our buildings and how our tenants love their very low energy bills. And I've got an extra mic
It's the
here,
long
and I
term.
can get Scott from MPI Foam, and I can let you guys duke it out while
Oh, I will. I
I
do
could
it
just be play referee
all day, all
all
day.
day. Okay,
The
well,
spray foam is so phenomenal in so many applications. It's the whole house approach
oh,
that
okay. Well,
just doesn't
Let me clarify then. We're not spray
like.
foaming the floor joists.
Well, I mean, like filling whole walls, filling whole cavity, like stud bays with spray foam. Not a great idea.
Okay. Well, I know you have a time limit, and that is very interesting. So
yeah. We'll push
let's
that up.
definitely
Pause.
schedule another episode for that.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm actually very intrigued because we've been spray foaming houses for I don't know 8 years now with
Mhm.
we're big fans. So yeah, but
It's that whole
anyway,
breathe. It's we'll get into that later.
yeah.
what do you want to
Fair enough.
end on here with our last like 10 minutes?
Well, that's a good question. Also, I guess we could end on like how you would advise anybody who's we were in high school,
Mhm.
and we had kind of a love for, I think, both, the love of like wood itself and the love of like tools,
Mm,
and being able to take a pile of whatever and hours later be like, that's something useful, and I created it, like boom, there's a staircase to be on the set or whatever.
mm,
But not everybody had that introduction young.
right.
But there are plenty of people who are lost, and they are maybe thinking about spending a bunch of money on college, but in reality they would be like happier going to a trade school for 6 months and becoming a framer. So just like, we both went to expensive schools that were
Mm.
unrelated to what we do now, and
Also,
it took us a long time to get here, but we both wouldn't change the path we were on because of life things that happened along the way and friends that we made and whatever. But from like strictly a career wise, like, I wish I could go back and tell, for just from a career perspective, I
mm,
wish I could go back and tell myself, like, you should not go spend 4 years at a liberal arts school. Go get a construction management degree in 6 weeks. Go, get your license, study immediately, and jump in. And I, didn't have somebody to tell me that. So I wonder what you would tell to maybe like the next generation of hopefully young listeners who are like, well, construction does seem cool, but I don't really know how to start.
um, depending on where you're at in life, I think there's two or three things here. The first is I'm a big believer in education in general, and I want this country, the United States, to eventually be number one again because we're like 57th in everything. Whether you look at like education, healthcare, whatever, but generally a better educated youth never hurt. Don't get a degree in underwater basket weaving. If you don't know what you want to study, go get a 4 year degree, get a business degree. That will
Underwater
never,
basket weaving. I was really thinking about going back to
right.
school for that. Yeah.
Our liberal arts colleges, they offer that stuff now. But
Yeah,
the
my
reality
school,
is,
that was the second major. It was nursing and then underwater basket
I,
weaving. I was the third category of business, so I didn't know
I
what I
don't,
wanted to do.
I don't know if you know this. I went to literally the most liberal school in America. Like no grades, no majors, no minors, no credits. Like the most liberal school in America, like hands down. Like it's not even debatable. But my point being, education is a good thing. And we've gotten a little distracted by this whole like pushing college for the sake of college without thinking about careers. And you're right that getting into the trades is a great field to be in. There's plenty of money to be made, which is just nice for being able to like live the life that you want to live, not for the sake of the money part of it. But if you want to really get into building, yeah, trade school, but a good one. There are plenty of carpenters unions and that stuff, and that's not helpful in my opinion. Um, I got my second degree from a school called the Vermont Technical College, and it took me like almost 3 years to get a degree. I went like full time, like back to school and worked full time on weekends. It was that like insane thing that people are like, "Oh, it's impossible. I'll never do it." Yeah, it really sucked. That was shitty, but I did it, and I don't regret it. Looking back, I don't think I would have done anything different, but education's important. You'll be a better builder, a better business person, and just a better citizen for getting the most education you possibly can. Whether that means 2 year degree or 4 year degree, I wholeheartedly believe in that. If you really, really, really just want to learn, how do I pick up a saw? How do I pick up a hammer and start building stuff? Um, Find a local trade group. I know we have the Home Builders and Remodelers Association here in Vermont. I know you have that same group in North Carolina.
Yeah,
Are you
I
a
believe
member?
so.
Are
I
you?
don't know for fact, but I believe so.
I think every state has them. Like there's like 17 chapters in Texas alone. But like I sat on the board for the state for the Vermont Association, and they are always like scrambling to find young people who want to get into the trades They will give you money. They will find a way to get you a ride. They'll find a company that wants to hire you and teach you to swing a hammer. That might be one of the greatest underutilized resources that's out there is the Home Builders and Remodelers Association, the HBRA. And it goes under a couple of names in other states, but that's the national branch. And it's the national HBRA is, I think, the overarching group. Get in touch with them. That's where I would say the number one resource in my mind. They will offer anything to you. We are so desperate in the trades. Part of the reason that I switched jobs and don't run my business as a full-time job anymore is I couldn't hire anyone. There was no one to hire.
Yeah,
I
that
literally
is a slight issue as down here as well. I have like especially my trades that might require like a little bit more like entry level education, like HVAC technicians. Like
I was
they're low on HVAC
I
people.
was starting hammer swingers who had never swung hammers before at more than 20 an hour and couldn't find people.
Wow. Yeah, that's
And I
crazy.
straight up like I bought a guy a truck once. Like I would do anything to keep good employees. People don't want to, it's not that they don't want to work, it's that you can't find good, reliable, quality labor because you as a business owner in this trade recognize people will say to us, oh, well, anyone can swing a hammer. But it's different when it's your name on your product on something that must meet a minimum standard of quality. This isn't
Yeah.
just putting together some slapdash cabinetry that you can throw into a mobile home, or you're building a little bar for your buddy's basement hangout. No, this is a thing that's your business and it has your name on it, and
Yeah.
it must meet a certain level of quality. And
Everything changes when you put your own name on it. It's true.
if it can't meet that level of quality, then you can't work for me. And
Yeah.
I had guys, I mean, if you make the same mistake twice, that was an indication to me that you weren't going to be up to par. I'll let you make interesting mistakes. Challenge me. Make my life interesting. Come up with something new. You miscut the same piece of siding 3 times in a row. Come on, guy. Like that. Come on.
Right.
So I would say, yeah, that get get in touch with the Home Builders and Remodelers Association. They will teach you. They will guide you. They will provide funding. They'll provide all kinds of stuff.
Well, there you go, folks. You heard it from the source, almost the direct source. There are a lot of avenues. For the record, I was not like shitting on education. Big fan of
Oh no,
education
I
as
didn't mean it.
well.
No, not at
Um,
all.
but I was just, I was not good at college.
But
I did it,
but you
but
touched
like
on a
there are
really
plenty of people who are like, I don't even want to go to college
I
and
didn't
squeak by with D's. I'd rather just get into working. And
I
that was
didn't
more the
I didn't
basis
even
of that question.
I didn't mean to go to college, and I knew I would get D's, so I went to a school with no grades. Um, but the reality is, you weren't shitting on education, but you brought up a really good point that it used to be that you'd push certain people for the wrong reasons. We pushed certain
Yes.
people into the trades, but we've gone like full end other end of the spectrum where we're like, everyone needs to go to college, and I'm like, how many Russian lit majors do we need? How many
Right.
these people end up being librarians? And not that there's anything wrong with that as a career choice, but they end up miserable and they end up wasting money on a college education that they will never use.
Yeah. And
And
my life is as far away from perfect as it can be to be criticizing anybody for picking any major
none of this
or
is
any
credit.
college. I more am just like, okay, I look at my college career and really the only thing that I positively took from it was some people that I met. And I would not change my college career because of those people. And they're still in my life now. And so that's a separate topic. But I'm just like, if you were to split the life of, yourself and be like, okay, if we're just gonna, this hypothetical doesn't work because like If I don't meet the person in college that makes me
Right.
move to a certain state, I don't get the job that led to the other job. So it's all connected. Life is a giant
Mhm.
spider web. But if we, in the hypothetical where I'm just talking to the, business side of my life, and I'm like, okay, college wasted 4 years of time. I didn't make money. It cost a lot of money. It got me none of the skills I needed to end up where I am now. It did. There was like one class where I built sets for the theater department as well, like we talked about in high school.
That's cool.
But like for the overall, like if in this very hypothetical that I'm laying out, there could have been a very different path of like college graduation to immediate construction management school for an accelerated 6 month
Mhm.
program, and then immediately working for a general contractor to figure it out, and then a year from then starting to take on my own jobs and finding my own crew, and I'd have a business much larger than I have now. Again, all of that's also hypothetical. It might not work out that smoothly. So that was just like, I don't know. I just felt like I needed to clarify that, like, I would not shit on anybody's quest for education.
Oh, it never. It didn't
Yeah.
sound
Okay.
like that. But no.
Cool.
But again, like you've like really hit the nail on the head for like this is a huge issue, and I hear about it all the time, where it's like, yeah, we want our kids to get into the trades, and the guidance counselor is only pushing college. Well, like, okay, there's a middle ground there, and
Yeah.
sometimes you got to work a little harder to find it. I would say the only other middle ground is take the risk. I look back, the only thing I would have done different is get an engineering degree first time around. Because
Yeah.
I have an environmental science degree, and that's how I got into doing like my senior thesis project was designing a gray water system for the National Maritime Museum. Like I have been into this energy efficiency sort of like resource management thing forever, and I just got into it in the residential construction world. But anyone who's questioning, I was a terrible math student. And I look back and I have friends now who are engineers, and I'm like, hey, how often have you ever been asked if you got a C in,
yeah.
structures class? They're like, no one ever asks.
Yeah.
We
Not
take
a lot
we
of people care about that. They care, in my opinion, they care more about the passion,
Yeah,
like the passion and the creativity that you hypothetically would have brought to the engineering field.
right.
That would have, you would have succeeded there. My
Oh,
mother wanted
I
me to
should
go to
have.
RISD and do, tinkering small engineering stuff. And I was like, no, I want to be a chef, because I didn't know what the hell I was talking about in high
Who
school.
knew? Who knew?
Yeah, who knows? Nobody knows. But
But take the risk is the best advice I can really give. Is like,
and
yeah,
follow some passion.
yeah, like I loved building stuff. I wanted to go to engineering school and I was afraid of the math. And only as a real adult in my 30s now am I like scratching my head like, why didn't I do that? Because I'll go to a doctor and that guy probably got straight D's too. Like no one ever like wonders about this stuff, especially in a professional capacity. Like you have the degree. All they care about is the piece of paper.
This is true. Nobody asks me what I got on my general contracting exam. They just want to know if I have a license.
See, you had to take an exam. I don't even have you have to do none of that in Vermont. I pay for insurance and a business license. I don't even
Well,
have
yeah,
building.
they don't have enough people in Vermont to make you take tests. There wouldn't be anybody to build. No, I'm just
I don't
kidding.
even have inspections. I've had plumbing inspections done over the phone. Flush it for me. I want to hear how it sounds.
What?
Oh, dead
What? Oh
serious.
my
Dead
God.
serious.
I literally had a plumbing inspection fail this morning because the pan
They're
was
nuts.
not sloped, and we sloped the pan later when the tile guys come. I was
I
like, what is happening?
I poured concrete and built an entire building so close to a preschool that just once after hours, well after hours. Let me say this again for any listeners who think I'm a dirtbag. Way after hours, I peed off the top of my staging into the playground just to show like how close I was to the school.
Are you
I
on some
pulled
list we should talk about, Matt?
I didn't pull a single permit. I didn't have any inspections. I have no C of O, nothing. I built the whole building. The mayor of the town came up to me one day walking his dog and he's like, "Hey, so you're building a building for Dave there?" I'm like, "Yeah, Dave wanted a new garage and with that, water and power to match his house." "Oh, that's cool. Can't wait to see when it's done."
Jeez, small town life's a little different up there, man. Durham is a bureaucratic nightmare. Anybody who works for the city of Durham that's listening, you're the worst. You are actually the worst, and you should figure out how to make this better, because I get like no help from anyone in the office. Like, I don't know who's training who, but like nobody help, with the exception of John Reed. John Reed, you are the man, just so I'm clear. If you're listening, I know you're not, because you don't have enough time to listen to podcasts. So yeah. But like, the city of Durham is bad. It is a bureaucratic nightmare. The forms I have to fill out. I have to sign a form that says I will put in smoke detectors. This is a real form that I have to sign, and you can't build a building like ever, period, in the history of ever, that gets an electrical inspection, because you will not pass an electrical inspection if it doesn't have smoke detectors. So I don't know why there's a whole separate form that says you will put in smoke detectors.
So I'm gonna end on this note. I've closed out 20 projects for my new job now in the last 2 months. I've had not one inspection of any kind.
Well, now I know that I would clear twice as many projects without inspections.
When we need electrical done, guess who does the electrical?
You're an electrician? You?
I do. In Vermont, if you're a homeowner, you can legally do all of your own electric.
Oh, so in North Carolina, you could build the whole house as a homeowner. But like when I get hired by John Doe,
yeah, but when I get hired,
my licensed guy.
Yeah, but when I got hired by that guy, I put it on the paperwork, homeowner doing electric.
Well, that's borderline illegal, Matt.
It's not borderline illegal. He watched.
So you got to charge it more. There's a watching fee for homeowners.
It's 25 an hour to do the work, 50 if you want to watch, and 100 if you want to help.
Yeah. And 150 if you've tried first.
Yeah, what is it? There's another one. There's like 200 if you try to supply your own materials.
Yeah. I've seen that on like a t-shirt that like has been targeted Facebook added for me. And I'm not going to buy that shirt, but it is very accurate. Yeah. I did one job in North Carolina.
Well, I gotta cut you off here because I do have a meeting I gotta get to.
Oh yeah, man. So well, this was fun. We'll schedule another episode soon, and good luck with that client later. And I appreciate you being on the show, man.
This is fantastic. I can't wait to be back.
Awesome. Bye, everybody.
See you guys.